Hello, and welcome to the Artificial Podcast, with your host Nick Myers.
Artificial
intelligence,
voice recognition, machine learning,
robotics,
actionable analytics.
It is Nick's goal to help everyone understand how AI and voice technology are reshaping our lives both personally and within organizations. Your glimpse into the growing world of AI and voice first starts now.
Nick Myers.
Nick Myers. Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
Welcome to the Artificial Podcast. My name is Nick Myers, and I am here to help break down topics in artificial intelligence and voice first to show everyone how these technologies are going to impact our lives both personally and within organizations. The Artificial Podcast is brought to you by Red Fox AI, helping give brands a voice to the power of AI and voice assistant technology. Hey there, artificial podcasters. Welcome back to another week and another episode of the Artificial Podcast. My name is Nick Myers, and this week's guest on the Artificial Podcast is Tom Still from the Wisconsin Technology Council. And I'm excited to have Tom on the show this week because over the past couple of months, I've actually become a bit more involved with the Wisconsin Technology Council and some of their events, and I can honestly say it has led to so many amazing opportunities, and I truly feel grateful to be living in a state like Wisconsin where we have a council just dedicated to increasing technology throughout the state and providing opportunity to startups and founders like myself. So I'm really excited to have Tom on the show. But before Tom and I begin talking, let me tell you a little bit about Tom Still. Tom is the current president of the Wisconsin Technology Council. He is a former newspaper editor and currently writes for more than 24 publications. Tom also serves as a current member on the Governor's Council on Workforce Investment, the UW System Business Council, the Badger Funds of Funds Limited Partners Advisory Committee, the Governor's Special Committee on Autonomous and Connected Vehicles, and on advisory boards for the UW-Madison College of Engineering and WSIS Technology Foundation, among other civic and business groups. Tom was a winner of the 2008 Madison Magazine Best of Madison Business Award and was named to Madison in Business Magazine's 2010 Executive Hall of Fame. Tom, welcome to the Artificial Podcast. How are you?
I'm great, Nick. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And it's I know we've only kind of gotten to know each other over the last couple of months here, but as I kind of introed when I started talking about some of the things that the Tech Council has just done for me in terms of opportunity, I mean, your work that you are doing along with the team at the Tech Council is just amazing. So I just want to preface that again, and I can't wait to be able to dive into more, not only about the Tech Council, but just about the state of tech in Wisconsin, the Midwest, and a couple of other things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and we do have a great team. There's no doubt about that. And they've been a big part of all the things that we've done over time. So proud of them and proud of some of the progress that we've made.
Fantastic. Well, first, I just want to kind of get a gauge, of course, of what led you to get started working in technology, specifically, I guess, with your current role, technology and workforce development in Wisconsin, and which ultimately now led to your role with the Wisconsin Technology Council.
Right. I think like, a lot of people, I probably slid into it sideways. As you noted at the outset, I was in journalism for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I got into journalism about the time that computer systems were becoming more prevalent in newsrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And there it was what was called a front end system in terms of being able to process copy, layouts, graphics, pictures, headlines, the whole package.
Yeah.
And get them more directly into the press operation. And of course, from there, they could be used in other digital ways as well. And so when I really first got into it, into the newspaper game, I had been at another paper where it was a very rudimentary system that had been introduced, and I helped train people on it. And when I had moved to the Wisconsin State Journal, and from there, I think I always had an interest in tech broadly. And by that, I mean, certainly information technology, but also the life sciences and other things that I was seeing happening to advance manufacturing. So I had a broad interest with not that much of a scientific portfolio behind me,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew what was interesting, and I felt like I had a bit of a pulse on what was going on. And at one point, I moderated something called the Wisconsin Economic Summits.
Mm-hmm.
And these were about, now going back 17, 18, 19 years. They were efforts statewide to pull together different groups to talk about the future of the Wisconsin economy. And so while moderating that, I became even more convinced that I could probably be of some help as Wisconsin began to feel its way toward a different economy, a broader economy, a more diverse economy.
Mm-hmm.
And about that time, the Tech Council was created, and I popped out of the box not long after that. So it's very much, I think, an evolutionary way that I got involved in tech. And I think because my core skills are going to be about communication, maybe the knowledge of how public-private partnerships work, the intersection of academia, all the kinds of things that really help foster good conversations and work. But I have a board full of actual tech experts, so that's where I lean when I need to know more.
No, that's awesome. And I do love that your background is actually in journalism, which I'm sure really helps you in your current role because, I ever since being more involved now in the tech council and getting all the different communications and different things, I see you out there constantly talking with people and being an evangelist for the organization and just the forward progress of technology in Wisconsin. So I'm sure having that background has just helped you immensely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's really been instrumental because at times I can interpret, shall we say, different trends in a way that maybe makes it a little more understandable for some people.
That's awesome. So maybe then, now that we've kind of set the groundwork, of course, to how you got involved with the Tech Council, maybe you want to talk a bit about what the Wisconsin Technology Council is, maybe some of the key goals of the organization. And I know before we started recording here, we were talking about how maybe Wisconsin is a bit unique in the fact that we have this, because I have some friends down in Illinois who would love something like this. So maybe if you want to talk a bit about just the Tech Council in general.
Yeah, sure. The Tech Council at the end of the day really has three major functions. One I would call a networking function. We really try to make sure that entrepreneurs like yourself and others are introduced to opportunities that could be in the investment world, it could be in terms of strategic partners, whatever it might be. We do that through events a lot of times, and probably about 3 dozen events a year we put on of all sizes. Some are major conferences, some are just small gatherings of people.
Mm-hmm.
We have a policy role, a public policy role. So we were originally created as a nonprofit, a 501c3, to be the science and tech advisory board or sounding board for the governor and the legislature and anybody else in state government who cared to listen.
I didn't even know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that was our foundational reason to be, and it continues to be a major part of what we do. We are in touch with folks in the Capitol, both sides of the partisan aisle, all the time on issues that are tied into the tech-based economy. We were just part of a coalition that got a bill to help enhance broadband in some parts of the state.
Really?
Yeah, just got that passed. We've had different things over time that have involved investment capital. For example, the Badger Fund of Funds, which you mentioned in the outset, was the result of some legislation that we got passed about 6 years ago now. So that has been a big part of what we do. And the reason we're a membership organization is because those members help provide voice
Mm-hmm.
to what we do. and the more members, the better, and they're big and small. They're raised in size from Epic and Promega and Rockwell Automation down to mom and pop in a variety of different settings, and some institutional folks too, who kind of bring in some of the academic side, for example. So that's the core of what we do, and some of it's around some very specific events. We run the Governor's Business Plan Contest, which is an excellent way for young companies to go through a process of writing a full business plan. And that has been successful over time. And in fact, the finalists in that contest, according to our own surveys, are about 3/4 of them are still in business, which is
It's amazing.
it's a pretty good survival rate.
Yeah.
We run the Wisconsin Tech Summit, and I know you're going to be present at that, along with
absolutely.
along with some other emerging companies that engage in speed dates with major companies. And that's going to be really exciting. That's going to be at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. So I think it's, those kinds of connections and the policy side, and as you alluded, the general communications, being an evangelist, holding the megaphone, talking more about Wisconsin, trying to elevate its status by pointing to the good things that are truly happening. We're not making anything up. We think that there's a lot going on here.
No, I would agree with you completely. And I think especially kind of having now been in a, quote unquote founder and CEO role here of my own startup company over the past 3 years, one of the hardest things is getting connected with people. And especially if you're a company that's looking for funding or just wanting to get in touch with investors or just general opportunities within the tech space, it's actually quite hard to do on your own. So the fact that you guys are poised to kind of be that middle organization that connects the emerging companies with already existing major firms who are interested in increasing their technological reach, I think is just amazing. And there's such a need for that, which is why I'm extremely grateful that Red Fox AI is based out of Madison, because we have the opportunity to work with the Tech Council and other organizations that help us immensely. So, and at the end of the day, like you just said, it's to also highlight some of the tech that's happening in Wisconsin, that's happening in the Midwest, because I think you can agree that when people think of technology, they don't necessarily immediately think of the Midwest, let alone Wisconsin. They think of California, they think of Washington State, Seattle, San Francisco, the West Coast, and then you think of New York and the East Coast and some of the cities on that side of the country. So what would you say is the current tech climate of Wisconsin, the Midwest, and maybe talking about some things that people may not know, because I really do think a lot is happening here. It just doesn't seem to get as much attention maybe.
Mm-hmm. I think that the tech climate in Wisconsin, as well as the upper Midwest, is getting stronger all the time and more diverse. There are young companies like your own that are engaged in AI and related technologies. A variety of companies that are in software and computer networking and health IT. And then if you, again, expanding that definition of what is tech, the life science strengths in Wisconsin are historic, actually, and remain very strong when you think about all the different innovations over time that have come out of here. This is a manufacturing state, and we're seeing much more advanced manufacturing around different technologies that are helping those companies survive and prosper and be more productive than they ever were. We're an ag state, and we're seeing increasingly ag-related technologies that are whether it's improving food safety or making the crops that are planted more productive, on less water, for example, or less fertilizer, a variety of things like that. That it is really it's really quite diverse, and you don't necessarily see that in all states.
Mm-hmm.
I think some places are known primarily for software,
Right.
and I think the Silicon Valley in California is a pretty good example of that. They certainly have a lot more, but that's what people think about when they think about the Silicon Valley is this the center for kind of the big tech companies. So couple of things have happened lately that, and this is just not me because after all, I'm kind of a cheerleader, right? I mean,
Right.
that's what I do, at least in part. But a couple of recent reports have reinforced that the Midwest is up and coming. The Brookings Institute issued a report in December that identified 36 emerging tech hubs, places that should be better if there was more investment in those.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Madison was number one on the list out of those 36.
I think I actually remember that report, and I remember that circulating around, and all of us were like, wow, that's an achievement.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yes. And Milwaukee was on there. They were 17th on the list. The Twin Cities, because of everything that's already happening there. I mean, the whole focus of the report was how do we build stronger tech hubs in parts of the country that are not on either coast?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why Madison and other places in the upper Midwest showed up. The Chicago Council on Global Affairs did a report that came out in January that echoed some of the same findings and had cities on the list such as Eau Claire, which I think
really?
Eau Claire has been a great story. This is a place that, if you go back to the early 1990s, a tire plant that had been there for generations shut down. So a lot fewer jobs, a lot lower wages, but they built on some of the strengths that they had. That's the home. Nearby in Chippewa Falls is the home of Cray Computing, going way back in time. And so you began to see people who were immersed in tech start to move ahead. A company called Jamf started in Eau Claire. Two UW Eau Claire grads and a lot of pizza and beer, right? As they fought through those early days, and today Jamf has 1,000 employees around the world.
Wow.
It's a great music scene. They have a strong university in UW Eau Claire. And so I think those kinds of pieces fit together for other communities like that. So as I look around Wisconsin, Green Bay is showing a lot of increased activity. Appleton, Janesville, cities that maybe emerged from some tough times in dealing with legacy industries, but have found ways to move ahead. And I have a phrase for kind of that stretch of land between Chicago through Milwaukee, Madison, some spurs up,
Mm-hmm.
like, the Fox Valley, but then into the Twin Cities. I call it the IQ corridor, with the I, of course, standing for interstate, but also ideas, innovation, intellectual property,
I
investment,
like that.
and the Q for quality. And I think this is another reason the Midwest and Wisconsin have a good chance to stand out moving ahead. Quality of our workforce,
Yep.
quality of the education here in general, quality of the research product, which, if you look at patents and other disclosures out of the Midwest, it's a leader. So there's a lot going on here, and I think a lot to build on.
I agree completely. I mean, even, living in Madison, you can just see it happening. I mean, I remember, and I know Tom and I both, of course, live in Madison currently. So some of the things I may be referencing, of course, to the listeners may not necessarily be able to get a visual on, but we have this main thoroughfare in Madison called East Washington Avenue, and up near the Capitol building on Capitol Square on the Near East Side. You probably remember this time. I remember, 10 years ago, maybe even a bit farther than that, it was just kind of barren factory, not really desirable. But you look at that now and what's happened within the last 10 years, specifically 5 years, and all the development that's happened on the Near East Side and up near the Capitol on East Washington Avenue, with Google opening an office here. I know there's a Microsoft office somewhere around here. Of course, we have the new American Family Insurance building that houses, 4 different levels of resources for startups. It's happening. And it's really cool to see that type of tech initiative taking off in a town like Madison that I think for years people never really associated with tech. And I can definitely say too, Tom, after meeting so many different people this past year, when I say I'm from Wisconsin, people just assume I work hard. And that's because it seems like the Midwest has this thing about it where people are like, oh, they're all farmers in the Midwest and farmers work hard. And that type of mindset, it seems like. So
Sure.
I agree with you. I'm really not surprised that after years of tech kind of being siloed to the coast, that there's starting to be more investment within the Midwest, because I think people are finally starting to take notice of the work ethic that truly can come out of this part of the country.
Yes, indeed. And, a couple observations. You're exactly right about the East Washington corridor. You don't have to go back too many years to remembering what it was like. And it was, it was a bit run down, and it was, you could hang a sign on it that said Rust Belt, and nobody would argue with you. But today it has really turned around, and I think that's emblematic of what's going on here. So that is all progress, and I do think that the workforce is part of the attraction here. I think the cost of doing business is an attraction to
Yes, that too.
The Midwest. When we looked at all of the angel and venture deals in Wisconsin for the 2018 calendar year, and right now we're working on tying up all the loose ends on 2019, just short of half of all deals had at least one out-of-state investor.
Wow.
That says something right there.
Yeah, it does.
That people elsewhere are finding us. They're recognizing that the deals are here, the technology's here, the people are here, and the valuation of those deals are reasonable enough to merit an investment. So as we move ahead, I'm predicting that 2019, when all those numbers are crunched, and some of this is depending on tax returns, and so we have to find some data that's related to that. But I think 2019 will be pretty easily the biggest venture and angel year in Wisconsin ever.
That's incredible. And that's really good news, I think, if publications come out and say that, because that's going to show other investors from different parts of the country that, yes, you can invest in the Midwest, you can invest in tech companies that are based in a state like Wisconsin and experience the same amount of success as you would from investing in a company on the West Coast or the East Coast. So I think that's insanely good news. I'm excited to see what comes out of some of those reports.
Yeah, we're looking forward to tying that up this spring, of course. And you alluded to something earlier, Nick, that is true, that not every state has something like the Wisconsin Technology Council, but a lot do. And we actually have an association for associations like ourselves.
Love it.
Yeah. And it's called the Tech Councils of North America. And most of the 50 states are represented either in a statewide tech council or tech association, or in a metro tech council. For example, one of the oldest in the nation is the Pittsburgh Technology Council. And they do a great job. I mean, talk about a town that turned around from, the abandoned steel mills into being a tech hub. They're a great example. And then also there are similar organizations in all of the Canadian provinces. So that's why it's the Tech Councils of North America. And so we get involved at the federal level on some policy issues too that we think are beneficial for all of our members.
That's amazing. Well, I can definitely say, if you're a listener right now who lives in one of the other 51 states that is not Wisconsin, then definitely look to see if there's any resources that are similar to the Wisconsin Technology Council, because I can attest to all of the opportunities that can come from just reaching out and contacting somebody from an organization like Wisconsin Technology Council, and getting involved and going to some of these events. They really can help you get connected more to people just within the tech space within your state, but also help you grow your business. So it's insanely valuable. So maybe shifting gears here a bit, Tom, what do you think is one emerging technology, whether that be, we look at emerging technology, right, where it could be AI, voice, blockchain, IoT, cloud computing, etc. What is one emerging technology that you think is going to impact enterprise and major firms more than any other within the next decade?
If I had to pick one, and I think all of those have great potential, but I think it's one that's very near and dear to your heart, which is voice. I think that voice-enabled technology is going to. I mean, the growth in recent years has been pretty much unbelievable.
Oh, it's skyrocketed, to say the least.
Yeah, if I remember some of your numbers, there were 250 billion uses of voice search in some time period of, well, I think
that's what's expected for this year. Actually, is 250 or 260 billion web searches are going to be voice based.
And when you think about it, natural language voice searches are, as that term describes, they're natural. That's what people probably want to do if they're given the right tools to do so. And so I think voice searches can probably take place in more locations. I think as we move ahead, I think you might see more in, right now it's the Alexa and Google and some others are, used a lot in homes and other places and businesses, but I think that it's going to expand to other settings as well. I think it could be in retail. I think it could be just a variety of things. And probably the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. And there are so many use cases we're finding now for, of course, our target at Red Fox AI is medium to enterprise level companies. But if you look at smaller companies, there's use cases, because not only can it solve problems for your existing customers by providing a new channel to communicate information, and now for the first time ever get a verbal feedback loop with your technology, but also solving internal problems and analyzing processes that voice can help streamline. And there are so many of them. And that's what we, of course, like to help companies figure out, is what is something that's mundane or something that maybe requires a large amount of staff now that could be streamlined via voice technology. And, our goal always is, as we work with different companies, is how can we either help a company save money with voice or make money? And the sky truly is the limit. And that's one of the challenging parts right now, too, is it really can impact every industry. With some pieces of technologies, you can really identify, all right, so, retail, this is the industry that this piece of technology can best serve, or manufacturing, this is definitely the one we want to go with. But with voice, it's ubiquitous. It can go into any of these different industries, which is both exciting, yet is definitely a hurdle for what we're trying to do and for the technology as well.
And obviously, this far better than I would, but when you think of warehousing and how voice could be used in terms of organizing goods within a warehouse or within a grocery store or anywhere where there's a lot of choices and decisions that can be made easier and perhaps less effort, I think it's probably going to have potential.
Absolutely. Anything that can save people time, as we've seen through the past couple of decades here, will be adopted like no other. And that's exactly what something like voice does. It helps us save time by using the simplest form of communication. So I personally, of course, couldn't agree more with you that definitely over the next decade, voice is going to be an emerging technology that is going to fundamentally shift so many different things.
Yeah.
So what are some key things that you think enterprise and major firms can start doing today to prepare for this next era that we're actively entering into, that essentially we're already in, that is fueled by all of this innovative tech?
I think, really, I think they have to just simply start with getting familiar with some of the tools that are out there, and that doesn't mean they have to become experts themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but enough that they know what they're dealing with, and that I think they're going to know their own businesses really well, and when they see that voice provides some sort of aha moment around whether it's the sales side or the distribution side or something else within that business, I think they'll probably pretty quickly recognize what they are looking for. Um, Voice, it can be used in anything from a general web search to some very specific uses, and so again, I think that sky's the limit. In terms of what else they could do, um, not be scared to invest in it.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
I think that's a big part of it because, if in any business, there's always going to be resistance around, well, can we afford it?
Exactly. Yes. We're encountering that right now.
Right. Okay. And the question is, well, can you afford not to do it? Again, depends on the business. But the growth and where that's heading, um, I think points to the fact that more businesses need to consider it and budget for it. And then the kinds of returns they're going to see, I think, should be really pleasantly surprise them, because I suspect, and you perhaps have some payback numbers that you could cite, but I suspect that an investment in voice is going to be paid back in fairly short time.
Absolutely. And really, when we look at some of these different technologies, it all depends on how it's deployed too, right? Like, I think there's been a lot of situations of major firms and enterprise in general thinking, oh, well, we have to jump on this new piece of technology, and they do, but then they just kind of throw it at the wall without any real strategy or plan behind it, and hope it sticks. And when they don't see the results from that because they didn't go into it with a plan, then they just think, of course, oh, well, this just doesn't work, we don't need to do this. But that's kind of where I think companies need to start thinking differently, is if you're going to deploy, say, a technology like voice, a technology like AI, cloud computing infrastructure, anything like that, you have to go at it with a plan, and you have to come at it from a standpoint, and what problem is it going to solve? And I talk a lot about that on this podcast, is
Mm-hmm.
what problem are these technologies going to solve for your company and for your customers? Because if they aren't, it is not worth it. And that is so crucial that you have that strategy behind it. And there are always problems to solve, but I think something very important to note, kind of piggybacking off of what you said, Tom, is going at it with a strategic approach, figuring out what is your problem and which one of these pieces of emerging tech can solve that to make you more profitable, help you save money, I think are very crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. It often boils down to a question of what's keeping you up at night, and if that problem is significant enough to do so, you probably want to take some steps towards fixing it. And I'm going to guess that some companies will do as you suggest. They will jump in both feet without truly thinking through
Yep,
how they want to approach it. Sometimes it's better to dip your big toe than to jump in both feet,
absolutely.
and then develop that plan and be aware that it will take some time to be fully implemented.
Absolutely. I agree completely. So maybe switching over to maybe more of the emerging / startup company discussion now. investors are always looking for something that is new or revolutionary, it seems like, or something that really just hits the mark in a way that hasn't been done before. Based on what you've seen in Wisconsin, the Midwest, or anywhere else, what type of tech products or startup companies in 2020 do you think investors have their eyes on and would be willing to invest in?
I think one big sector will be health related.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't have to be a political expert to follow that healthcare and the cost of healthcare
Is ridiculous.
yeah, it's something that uh, really is in the middle of the political debate, and I think a lot of people are generally fine with the quality of the healthcare they get, but the cost side has really hurt a lot of people. So,
Yes.
one of the things that we see through the Tech Council and through a related organization, it's called the Wisconsin Healthcare Business Forum, which we co-founded, is that tech can take some of the costs out of healthcare while improving quality. And health providers are always looking to maintain the quality and the patient experience. They want to improve that patient experience. Here's where voice, I think, in health could be
Huge opportunity there.
just amazing. And so I think when I look at the number of deals pretty consistently over the past 3 years, close to half of them are going to touch health one way or the other. It might be electronic health records and related health IT.
Mm-hmm.
It might be therapeutics. It might be diagnostics, which increasingly a lot of people think are key to the overall health and healthy well-being of people.
Yep.
Because if things are diagnosed earlier and more
Prevention.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it takes some of the costs out of the back end. A lot of things on the health side are administrative, just wringing some cost and process out of what goes into, administering a health system. So that's where I see a good number of deals in Wisconsin in the past, and I think continuing into the future. Because the opportunity to save money while making things more efficient is as big in healthcare as any sector you could point to.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you alluded earlier that not only just in tech but in biotechnology and life sciences, we're really starting to see some companies come to the forefront there. I mean, just south of Madison and Verona, we have Epic Systems, which for listeners who are unfamiliar with Epic Systems, they are one of the largest electronic healthcare record and medical software system companies in the country, I think, and they have, I think, a majority of let's just say they have a lot of customers.
they have a lot of customers, especially in larger health systems.
Yep.
And in fact, this is sort of a market share trivia piece here. If you have an electronic health record in the United States, anywhere where you live, there's a 56% chance that it's an Epic record.
Yes. Yep.
And so it's white labeled in a lot of places, right? But that's what's powering those records in many, many locations.
Yes, Epic. And then, of course, we have Exact Sciences, another biotechnology company starting to, I shouldn't say starting, they have really kind of taken the area by storm by developing that revolutionary, it's that colon cancer test kit, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Cologuard, it's
Cologuard.
called. And a great story started by a couple of people who had done work in Wisconsin before with previous companies, and basically found Exact Sciences on the scrap heap in Boston. It was a company that was almost left for dead. Moved it here because they recognized, again, workforce, quality of people, the quality of the research, the cost of doing business, all of that. and built it into what it is today. And also a great example of how diagnostics are changing how cancer is treated. So they've been just an amazing addition to the Madison landscape. Of course, here for some decades now is Promega.
Yep, Promega as well.
And that's a company that does assay tests for scientists and health care experts all over the world. So we're fortunate to see those kinds of things in the Madison area.
Absolutely. So I completely agree that I think healthcare is definitely an industry. If you're a startup company that's either providing a service or a product using, of course, the power of technology to improve healthcare, I think you are definitely onto something. And I agree with you completely, Tom, that I think that also is another area where sky is the limit, because there are so many problems within healthcare that I think, of course, technology can kind of come and help mitigate really, really effectively if deployed right. I mean, we're even seeing AI systems now that can recognize cancer more efficiently than human beings and aid diagnostics that way. So it's all starting to happen. So definitely healthcare is a space to watch. But as we kind of wrap things up here, Tom, I always like to ask every guest that I bring on the show this question to kind of cap things off here, because I love the different responses I get. But what is one thing that you think someone can do today to begin leveraging AI or another piece of emerging tech, either personally or within their organization?
Let's see. That's a very provocative question, as I think.
Right.
Because it's like you say, it's a one thing. I think because of the ubiquitous nature of voice. We just talked about it in terms of, from the home to retail to healthcare, to I think your own personal vehicles, your workplace, your school. I think that getting the one thing that people could do is embrace it and get more familiar with it. And in an age when a lot of people are worried about data privacy, I think voice, because of some of the inherent technologies behind it, can be more secure than some other forms of technology.
I think that's excellent advice. And I know we've kind of been on the voice train here, but I think for good reason we are, because there are so many different applications of this. And I think specifically when you look at how it can impact us personally or within organizations, it's already happening. I mean, I can't tell you how many times a day I use my different voice assistant devices just to accomplish very simple things. And yeah, they're simple, but they help me save, just 5 more seconds or 10 more seconds in something that would normally take longer. So I think that's fantastic advice, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Very good.
Fantastic. Well, Tom, if anybody wanted to reach out to you or contact you, what are some of the best ways for them to do so?
Well, through our website, of course, which is wisconsin-technology-council.com. They can email me through that as well. Our phone number for anybody who wants to just call is 608-442-7557. And I think be watching our social media. I mean, I think that's one of the more powerful ways this can be done in terms of contacting us, because I feel like we have a strong presence there and are trying to put out a lot of information. And so for entrepreneurs especially, or other busy business people, it's sometimes tough to pull yourself away from whatever the task of the day is.
Yes.
But social media is always going to kind of be there and accessible when you need it. And that will connect you into our different events and different kinds of things that we're doing. So I think watching out for our social media presence is a good way to reach us. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So we're pretty reachable.
Absolutely. And Laura does a fantastic job with all the social media too, because I feel like I tag Wisconsin Technology Council in a tweet or a LinkedIn post, and she's already got a response there and is always engaging with people. So yes,
Absolutely.
if you follow Wisconsin Technology Council on any of the major social media platforms, you will get a response if you send a message. I can guarantee that. Well,
Right.
Tom, this has been a fantastic time chatting with you. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and knowledge on technology and, of course, the state of all this in Wisconsin, the Midwest, because I don't think a lot of people realize all of the neat things that are happening here. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll chat soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Artificial
Intelligence.
voice recognition machine learning.
Robotics.
You've been listening to the Artificial Podcast with your host, Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
To stay up to date with all our latest episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. To learn more about how your organization can benefit by unlocking the power of AI and voice, visit www.redfox-ai.com. Until next time.